Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so happy to moderate today's panel for a wonderful Polish film called Sunflower. And without further ado, I'll invite you all to welcome the writer, director, producer of the film, Mateusz Balcerek.
Hello, everyone.
And we also have with us the composer of Sunflower, Roberto Mengoli.
Hello. Hi.
Teos, let's start with you. The movie is called Sunflower. It is about your grandmother. It's a very personal story. So could you, before we dive into the nitty-gritty of it all, give us a bit of context why you wanted to make this short film and how your grandmother's story is actually connected to sunflowers?
Sure. Well, thank you so much, first of all, everyone, for tuning in. We're so happy you watched the film and you're here with us today. So Sunflower is inspired by the true story of my grandmother, Danuta Górecka. She's still alive, and it's actually the 80th anniversary of that particular event. It was just a month ago. So growing up, she would tell us the story over and over again. And she remembered 3 gunshots, stepping on the blood-soaked floor the next day after the murder of her grandfather. And the rest just pieced together from a lot of family stories, her mother and relatives. Her mom used sunflowers and their petals to explain the concept of death and people passing away from the family. It was some sort of a metaphor she was using to make it a little less harsh than it was in reality. So turning something, like tragic into a way to make sense of it for a child. And then there were moments like playing hide and seek, which wasn't just a game, but a way to teach the kids how to hide for safety during those really terrifying moments in their lives. It's really dark and heartbreaking, but at the same time, there was something just so beautiful and cinematic in it that I always had it in the back of my head that I do want to tell this story on screen. And as you know, like Sunflower takes us back to 1944 Poland during the war through the eyes of a 5-year-old kid. It's really about family. It's about courage, hope, with those touches of magical elements that build the world for a little kid within her imagination. We really didn't want to tell like another war drama story. We wanted to dive deeper into this imagination of a kid, how she experienced the war from her perspective, what she understood was happening around. And that's something beautiful for me, that we can actually catch those little elements even in the darkest times. And obviously, I've been so lucky to work with an incredible team, starting with Roberto, who's here today, our composer, but also extending to really amazing DP who connected with me instantly. Łukasz Dziedzic worked on films like West Side Story, Roving Woman. Amazing production designer who really brought my grandma's vision into life, and she was assisting in that process as well. It's just been a beautiful journey to recreate this family story and put it on screen. So I'm really happy people can now watch it. And obviously it's now also longlisted for the Academy Awards this year, which is really exciting.
Yes, fingers crossed. And just for the viewers, I also want to make clear that like sunflowers are a very typical flower you see in Poland. There's like fields and fields of them just in cities for their beauty, but just for their industrial use as well. And it's a very common thing to eat sunflower seeds, and even they come in different varieties. Like you would have potato chips here in America. So yeah, it's very ingrained in the culture. Roberto, speaking of culture, because I want to bring you in now, you're Italian and you do not speak Polish. So I'm also curious about being brought into this very Polish film in many ways, although the themes are so universal. So could you talk about like at what stage did you join and what drew you to the project?
Yes. Thank you so much, Estiel, and thank you, Liisi, for the introduction. Absolutely. Of course, it was a challenge, and in the first place, I got a bit scared too, because of course I don't speak the language, and in this in this moment of the Polish history, there is a very specific sound and there is a very specific ambient that we wanted to keep traditional and authentic. So I second guessed myself a couple of times, but whenever I watched the film for the first time and understood truly the story and the aesthetic and the meaning of it, I felt confident I could work on it. We work a lot with Polish music, and we started and we did our researches to make it feel as authentic as possible. And yeah, so that was for sure the first approach. I was brought in December, and I think they were working post-production. I also received the script a while before, and I was also seeing some of the shots they got on set, and so I was involved, and I was going through the whole process once I turned. Yeah.
Well, Mateusz, from your side, like, what were these first conversations like, and what was really like what you wanted Roberto to bring to this project? And I understand you like sent him a lot of Polish wartime songs.
I think something that you mentioned about the international aspect of it all, like that was for me like the most rewarding element of Sunflower. We just had such an international team. We had people from well, obviously Poland, but also US, UK, Italy, Turkey, and bringing together creatives from such different backgrounds, both like historically, culturally. I think that added so much like depth to this project. It's something that typically Polish films don't have. And a lot of people tell me now, this doesn't feel like a Polish film in the way the sound is created, the music, and all of those like little elements make it such a unique story from that perspective that reaches very broad audience, or can reach very broad audience in that respect. So it's not just about making a Polish film, it was more about like creating something very universal that can resonate with people everywhere, even these days with political conflicts and all the kids going through those wars in different parts of the world. I just wanted to make sure like it reaches those people. But with Roberto, I think from the beginning, we loved working together. I was sending him lots of references when it comes to Polish songs that my grandma remembered and those that I've been raised with. And they're mostly like heavy soldier, songs performed by soldiers most of all. And we wanted to make it more light in a sense, but also to make it relevant for like the child's eyes. And at the same time, music was such a powerful and important element in 1940s Poland. It was the only source of light and entertainment for them. So we really wanted to make sure it comes across in the film. And I think two songs that are in the film are sort of inspired by true songs. So you can talk about that, Roberto, Oh My Rosemary and White Roses, and then how it influenced your other work, maybe.
And I'm also curious, Roberto, if you could speak a little bit about, so listening to those Polish songs and wartime songs, and was there an instrument that specifically sort of spoke to you that you were like, okay, I definitely want to bring this in and use this?
Yes. We did some researches on the structure of the songs and what was the instrumentation that we're using and what was the core of it. I think the main was that we wanted to use were the mandolin, the accordion, and the flugelhorn, which was for me the most interesting instrument to use too. Because typically how I see the flugelhorn being used is just as a tuba or like a profound sound, like something in the lower end that you can use, to support some other instruments. But in this case, what they were using it um, for the folkloristic type of music, they used it as a melodic instrument, which was really, really interesting. And how they combined the flugelhorn with the other ones to support that. So that was very, very interesting. And then we worked on the ensemble on how to make it more wide and how to make it even more cinematic in a way. So we expanded that ensemble with with a flute, a clarinet, and double bass, and a harp, and all of that was to balance the sound, because of course, if the flugelhorn was used as a melodic instrument, we wanted something else that could, carry the depth of the music, but also something more whimsical, like the harp and the flute that can, resonate more with the child point of view of the score. So yeah, we were very detailed about the soundscape that we wanted to build, and also the double bass and the arp, where they're very versatile instruments. You can use them both as support, but also we can use them as lower end. And in that sense, they can be really profound, and the arp can also be very tensive using the low strings, but also using the higher range can be very tender. So yeah, that
And
was the process.
it does feel like a hopeful score, and was
Yeah.
that important to you, Mateusz? And I'm also curious about the communication process the two of you had for finding the right score for this story.
I can just briefly mention, I think the scene in the church is the best example here. So my original idea for that scene was to just have it silent, like no music at all. And then in first suggestion, Roberto sent it to me with like the full choir and orchestra, which was a bit like, at first like was overwhelming. And then I discovered like something totally new about that scene, which was actually amazing. I was really impressed by that moment when you sent it to me, and also like that it was like your creative choice entirely. Like I literally told you like no music for that scene. And you came back to me with something so beautiful and so powerful, and it just added like another layer to this scene.
It's one of my favorite scenes in the film, so I'm so glad you were mentioning this already. And let's talk about it in two ways. I'm very because yes, you're using this Guildhall orchestra here, but you're also using a children's choir. So yeah,
Mhm.
how did those two parts come in? And yeah.
Yes. So actually, I don't know if Matt knows this, but the inspiration from the choir itself came from a film that is very close to my heart. It's called Les Choristes in French, and the chorus in English. It's a beautiful film from the 2004. It's all around young kids experiencing war, but at the same time finding some tenderness with music and singing. So whenever I saw in the first place that scene, um, it could have worked without music. Like there is no lie about that. Okay, the music, the scene is just beautiful. Um, yes, so it could just work in that way. At the same time, it reminded me of the same emotional feeling that I was having watching that film when I was very young. And I said to myself, maybe this is a good point to use just a children choir to bring that aesthetic too into the movie. And by now, we don't hear anything like, of course, the score is lighthearted in many ways. At the same time, there was not yet that type of lightheart, like something that is completely focused on the child. So I think that was the moment where I chose them. I could just do a pitch to him and maybe see if that's something that he enjoyed or not. I'm glad that he was well received. We actually extended that score because in the first place it was a bit smaller, and then we had a bit of the orchestra from the beginning, um, starting on the Sunflower as an introduction, then to the church. So that was how that scene was built. Yes, we worked with the Guildhall Session Orchestra. I love working with them. They have a beautiful studio. It's called the Milton Court Concert Hall, and we were able to record most of the score there. And then whenever I pitched that cue to Matt and Pinara, our producer, I just thought to use VSTs, honestly, for the choir. I would not expect for them, to embrace the idea that much to actually go for musicians and children choir. But they said, "Hey, let's record this." I was mind blowing and so excited too. So I spoke to my friends at Guildhall, and they recommended me this beautiful choir, which is the Music Centre London. It was conducted by Richard. The experience was amazing and incredible. The children were so involved into the project. They they draw sunflowers all over the studio as a gift for us. So that was so tender. Yeah. So yeah, we spent a couple of hours just rehearsing, and then we recorded the lines. Yeah.
Wow.
It was just such a beautiful. I remember when you sent me the pictures when you were recording. I couldn't
Yeah.
attend the session of recording of the choir, but it was just
Yeah.
something beautiful. All the little drawings that they did for us with sunflowers,
Yeah.
and they were just super happy about the process.
Yeah.
Super
It was
fun.
very special. It was very special recording session. And they were so focused and they're very, very talented kids. They performed for the Jubilee and like they're amazing, amazing children. And we also got the chance to experiment with them a lot. For example, the last part of the cue, there is a very, very long sound, and we came up with all of these ideas to plan it through, um, divide into groups and just making the note linked by the two groups and do some other things. So they were very open to also experiment, which is like the curiosity that they had was incredible.
And even for you, Mateusz, because it seems astonishing to get an orchestra for a short film. So I mean, especially when you listen to it, you watch the film in a theater, that must be just like an overwhelming experience. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Honestly, like every collaboration we've had on this film, I was just feeling honored and impressed that they want to work with me on this. Because obviously it started as a small project. Like we did not. I had an idea in my head, and I brought first person I brought on board was Łukasz, so the DP, and he just inspired so many amazing people and everyone within our crew in Poland, from the gaffer that is like a legend of Polish lighting. He's worked on like 80 plus movies, including like 6 Oscar-winning ones. Um, and grip team, production design, costumes, all like authentic from like 1940s when it comes to materials. It was just like such an insane process because the budget was like tiny for this project, but those people resonated with the story so much that they wanted to help us. Same with obviously the orchestra and everyone else involved, and then the sound design in LA. That was the next big element of the film. We've had a chance to work with Formosa Group and amazing designers, Greg Hedgepuff and Bobby Banks and David Tishowers mixing. They worked on films like Batman, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Dune 2. And we did the sound mixing at Paramount Studios, which was just a very interesting and powerful experience to me, but they brought so much to the story. Like, I don't know if you paid much attention to the sound design, but the sounds like the crackle of a fireplace or the scratch of pencil, they're all recording it live in the studio, some of them even later with different things, just to make it like come across like even stronger. It's like something that the kid would pay attention, but like the adults not really. But we wanted those sounds to be like very impactful in that sense, and just work with them was it entirely changed how I feel about like storytelling. And obviously sound is so powerful, probably similar to the visuals of the same level. But I think the whole like experience was just amazing for me. And I'm very honored to have worked with everyone and that they wanted to be a part of our short film.
Yeah, I mean, much like the score, I love the sound design, and it's so precise, and it really adds ambience again to you're seeing the war from a child's perspective, and those explosions in the background, like you don't they sound near, you don't know where they are exactly. I feel like it's great in putting us in Danka's shoes. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean,
Uh,
the goal was like to make those very vivid, right? Because the kid pays attention to every single thing that happens around them. And so is the music kind of, I feel like that scene again, like in the church, because for me, it was like just an overwhelming like emptiness and grandiose of the church first that was like filling for me. But then when Roberto created this score with the choir, I think it was just something beautiful because the kid would probably see this place, like imagine this place as full in their head. Like they would see, I don't know, like a choir on the balcony, and then everyone just singing and like having their time enjoying like the service and the thing that was happening in this church. So that just brought like another layer that we don't see, but we hear it, and we are in this child's head.
Yeah, well, you already briefly mentioned the song White Roses at the start. So I would love to talk about, because I know this was added into the film much later, and I find it pretty surprising that when you were casting for your young actress, you didn't even ask Martina if she can sing. So before we get to Roberto and the arrangement of that song, could you just talk about how it came about? And could you also give us a bit of history of White Roses, because it's such an important song for Poland?
Yeah, for sure. So there's two songs that my grandma remembers from that period, and two of them are in the film. Well, the first one starting the film is "Oh My Rosemary." It's only the melody, but it was one of the favorite songs of the grandpa that was murdered, and then the other one is White Roses. White Roses that again originally is performed by soldiers, but here we thought about something a bit more tender, more light. I was originally thinking about one of like the female musicians in Poland that's very famous, but like in her 30s. I was just wanted to make it like a clean sound, female sound. But then I thought, well, what if we ask Martina if she can sing? So I texted her mom, asked, well, can Martina sing by any chance? And she was like, yeah, she actually is going to singing classes. And then I sent her this song. And 3 days later, she came back to me with that recording that's actually in the film, a cappella. Because the next ones we're asking her for like a couple of reiterations later, but they were not as powerful as the first one. I think just the first time I heard this song when she sent it to me, I just like put it on my phone and listened to it. I was like, wow. It was just so beautiful and simple. And then Roberto obviously added some arrangement underneath that, which even made it like a bit more powerful in that respect. Yeah, I was just amazed with everyone working on it. Honestly, they were just surprising me every single time. Same as there's one story about our production designer when he came on set the first day with 8 kerosene lamps, all authentic into 1940s, all working. He was like, okay, so which one do you want? It was like 8 kerosene lamps, all very different, but very authentic to the period. I'm like, okay, cool. I guess this one. Yeah. But yeah, Roberto,
Wow.
go ahead and tell me about White Roses.
Yes, and Roberto, especially, I'm curious those first, because you get an a cappella version of a song in Polish. So yeah, so what was that like, and how did you end up using the beautiful piano score?
Yes, we discussed about the song and the meaning of the song and in the Danuka perspective. So we chose to start with the piano. We thought that since we never heard the piano in the whole score at that point, it could have been a good choice. At the same time, we wanted to experiment with some other things. We experimented with some strings, but nothing was actually working because every little thing was just overpowering the the song and the lyrics. So we just stayed with the piano. At the same time, I'm very grateful to because I was working with a team. I want to thank them, Fabrizio Aiello and Eduardo Cioffi. They helped with score preparation and also with the with the projects and preparation too for the recording. But I was working with Eduardo at that point because we were thinking how to make these piano in some way special because we were working, of course, with a DST. I think it was Noir from Last Instrument, but there was something that we wanted to make a bit more harsh in some way, because in that that ending, it's not an easy ending. Even if the family is like they love each other, and right now they're going all in the same path. There is no conflict in that moment, in that specific moment at least. Still, they're saying goodbye to their home and to their city. So we wanted to make something a bit more harsh and painful. So we used some saturation on, yeah, something that could give not a clean sound to the piano. We didn't want a clean sound. We wanted something that felt in some way, I don't want to say horrifying because it was not that feeling, but something in that direction. Because still the path is not easy, what they're going to encounter in their way. So that was the process for the arrangement. And also it was interesting because the song had some similarities to Rosemary, which is the first song. So we made some comebacks to the first song. Okay, so
Yeah.
there was some counter melodies, something we took from the first song and put in the arrangement of Rosemary of White Roses without making it more complicated. It's just very natural, but there are those comebacks.
And I love because if you like go on YouTube after this and listen to some of the different versions of White Roses, which there are many, they're all very bombastic. And there's like a lot of instruments, and I love how you stripped this down.
Rozkwitały pąki białych róż. Wróć, Jasieńku, z tej wojenki wróć.
And I'm curious, Mateusz, like the feedback you've received, like specifically for this song, because it's you know, it's a popular song. It's used in independence ceremonies in Poland. So what are the people's feedback for that?
Well, they loved it. I think that's what made them like reflect on the film after. This song and like going into the ending credits just makes people like think about what they just experienced. And that was, I think, the main element. It was so interesting, like being in Q&As in Poland, because that film like generally reminded them of like their family stories. Like this specific event happened to so many families in Poland, and it affected many, many people. So when they saw this film, they were like, okay, like my grandma was telling me exactly the same thing. Or and even during Q&A, people were standing up and sharing their own family stories, which was like so powerful to me that they actually wanted to do that. So some people like cried remembering about it, which was also like very interesting just to see that this song was like some kind of like an opening to like bigger reflection. And obviously the ending scene, when they go into the unknown, they're about to start a new life that they don't, well, start new life or end their life, they don't know where they're going to, is just something kind of like powerful and reflective in that respect. I think that was the goal with the song.
Yeah.
But obviously the simplicity of it, I think that just works so well. I think we didn't, from the beginning with Roberto, we're like, no orchestra for this, like no full arrangement, just like very simple and raw.
This is a sort of a mean question, but I'm curious if you have a favorite scene or something that you're especially proud of having pulled off with this, Mateusz, and also Roberto, for you, like watching the film. I'd be curious.
I love the opening, well, not the opening, the scene when we enter the house. It was a 360 shot, a long shot that we had, I think, around 27 takes off before we finished filming. Generally, like as you can see in this film, there's not many cuts, right? Like we're doing a lot of long shots, and that was the goal for me and the DP, to tell the story of a kid. So it's more like just flowing through the environment, more than doing the cuts and jumping between different visions. We wanted to stay within that one perspective. That scene was very hard, especially as we were like doing the full pan 360 and moving to the side and showing the full house all around with the ending when they were leaving into the field. So I think that was just something very powerful to me. But even the beginning of the film, when the voiceover is actually my grandma, so I'm very, very happy about that, that we made it happen. We spent 3 hours in the recording studio trying to make it sound cinematic in a sense. It was her first experience doing something like this, so she was very excited, but I really did want to make it happen. And obviously our Formosa team from LA was on the Zoom call. We were recording in Poland. It was a very interesting part of this film, but I'm very happy we managed to like incorporate somehow my grandma into that.
That is
scene.
so amazing. Yeah, Roberto, do you have a scene, or just from this whole process, is there something, a moment that stands out to you?
Yeah, I actually have a scene, which is the whole transition from Tanuka being under the bed and just coloring book towards the scene of the soldiers coming into the house and finding about them. Just because I think it's so well shot, it's so beautiful, and musically, what we wanted to achieve there was to give a bit of a sense that Tanuka was making a mistake in that sense, you know, going to her grandfather and just turning up the light, making the house visible to the soldier's eyes. So there was that small tension. At the same time, she has a pure heart. She didn't do it thinking straight out of that, of course. But yeah, so I think that that whole concept is just beautiful and haunting to me. So yeah, I love that.
What's your favorite cue, by the way? Like music cue. Which one are you most proud of? I'm curious.
Me, that one. Honestly, that one. Because the interesting thing is that, okay, I have to tell this story. I'm sorry. But whenever I received the script, I wrote that music for that scene. And I didn't even watch the film. And the interesting part of that is that it was already working with the thematic material from the song. So they were like just combined. They were working. So the song has this very small dissonant semitone that they use as theme. So whenever I could just put that semitone to make the tension and use the underground underneath that scene, which is very melodic and very tender, I don't know, it just worked. And there is always that moment whenever you're working on a film that everything is just clicking and everything is just going well. So yeah, I feel particularly good about that moment for that reason too. So, yeah.
So like after the shots, after the gunshots?
Before the gunshots.
Before the
when
gunshots.
she's
Oh, when
yes,
she's like
yeah,
walking.
when
Okay.
she's going, yeah, when she's going through. I already wrote the melody for that. Whenever I was reading the script,
Okay.
and the first song just went so well with it, like combined it was so well with it. So,
What was your favorite scene, Liisi?
yeah.
I think it is the scene in the church, because
Oh yeah, you mentioned.
especially because I know you also filmed, it's like an open air museum that has been like
Oh, the
restructured.
church actually interior was somewhere else. The
Oh, it
exterior
was,
of the church is in that museum. And the church we found, and the one in the museum was like not as raw as we would want. They just made too many alterations after. So we found another church like north from Warsaw, which is quite old. I don't remember now which year, but at least I think like 300 years, if I will remember.
it's like old wood as well, right?
Yeah, I think it's mostly close to the public. I think there's only like service from like 1 to time happening there. And it was like a middle of nowhere, literally like fields around, nothing else. Just like a little town, like from a few kilometers away. And then there was just this church standing in the middle, which is very interesting. But yeah, this church was just beautiful. We didn't have to do much to make it raw and simple.
Yeah, it looks gorgeous. Just I was like, oh my God, this is like a real, like you can sense that it's a real location, the wooden church. So that was gorgeous. And then once the choir comes in, I was just glued into it. It's so beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you.
And just for
Thank you.
context, you were with filming most of it like real locations, because everything at the house, it's a house in an open air museum in a city called Radom, that they reconstructed the village how it would have looked at that time in the 20th century.
Exactly. So yeah, that was like an open air museum. We just what we did is we removed everything from the inside, and then Rafał Osiński, our production designer, he built all of the furniture for the inside. So we replaced like the beds, the cabinets, the table, everything else was built by him. Just the house from the outside was the original from that museum. And something I loved about it was those two pair of windows, which resemble the eyes that my grandma really remembered. She always said like the house had its eyes. And that's something that stood out to me. And whenever we were going to like a different open air museum, like me and my DP, I think we saw all of them in Poland. We went to like 12 at least, all around the country. And finally, when we saw this house, I was like, yes, that is the one, and we really want to film there. But even like originally, like obviously, like, we had like in our minds, movies like Life is Beautiful by Roberto Benigni and La Pupille, the short film by Alice Rohrwacher, and those films like have such unique locations and this like grain also in the film that we really wanted to do here as well. So it's not just like a modern film; it has this sort of like vibe to it that stands out.
Yeah, so for everyone watching this, please ask questions. Now's your last time. I'm curious about next steps for both of you with this specific project first, because I understand, Mateusz, you are wanting to turn this into a feature. Is there a script already? And then after, I would love to hear Roberto's thoughts about how would you expand the score if this were to turn into a feature?
It's definitely well, the script is written already, and it's ready, which we're excited about. We're hopefully gonna be shooting it late next year, if everything goes well. But I think the short film serves as kind of like a historical foundation and a proof of concept, showcasing like general tone, maybe visual style, but we want to go deeper into the exploration of music in the full one actually, and go into a musical genre. So the idea is to make it into a fantasy musical where Sunflower takes an actual role, like a leading role in shaping the kids' vision of the world. So you can think about movies like Jojo Rabbit, for example, or I say sometimes Beauty and the Beast, the live action version, as a reference for the feature. We just want to make sure like it's a war drama that has never been created before. It's more like set in this child's vision perspective, and taking the whole history a little bit more light in that respect, and not necessarily placing into, again, location time, but more focusing about just the experience that the kid would have and how they would use different elements around them to start understanding the reality. And that's something that the Sunflower will take the lead role in, just showcasing how to lead the viewer through this world, and how to immerse yourself into an imagination of a 5-year-old kid going through these violent times.
That sounds amazing. Okay, Roberto, you go.
Yeah, we spoke about a bit. Musically, correct me if I'm wrong, and Matt, but musically, of course, we are going to use more songs from the folklore of Poland. So it would be a lot centered in that, which I'm really excited about, because I already told him, okay, I'm gonna go 2 months in Poland and just record people sing that and just studying it, which is one of the most rewarding things that we can do, I think, as a film composer, just going into the actual places and study the culture and study the structure of the music that they have, and yeah, study everything basically and research how it is. So I'm very excited. I love musicals, and I think it's such a great idea to display the story in this way. So yeah, I think it will be challenging and rewarding in such an immense way, which I just cannot wait to do. So yeah, I think that will be it.
Yeah, I mean, I already want to see it. I love
Yeah,
the
me too. Me too.
Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us, and please spread the word about this beautiful, important film called Sunflower. Mateusz and Roberto, it was a joy to talk to you. Please, if you want to say anything before we go ahead, Mateusz.
Thank you again, everyone, for joining, for watching the film. If you have any feedback for us, always we are open to that. Please let us know anywhere you can find us online. But yeah, thank you so much, Liisi, also for helping us today, and SCL for hosting this event.
Thank you.